refresh. We click on something else, there's nothing there because we'll go up to the first row with the right. So when they click on that, also get element by ID. In this tutorial, you'll be learning how to create a simulated version of the Amazon navigation sidebar panel. So this is the official Amazon one. On the website, you click the hamburger menu. It scrolls to the side. There's an overlay here to indicate that this sidebar is open now, and this content can't be interacted with. And it's got all these panels. These ones, the ones with the arrow to the right, you can click on them. There's a sub panel that appears via an animation, and there's also these drop downs as well, which show like more tabs in relation to this header here. And this is my version. It's de facto the same pretty much. I mean, I've replicated every feature. So you click on it, this overlay appears. I put an image here just to basically to make the overlay stand out. And then yeah, it's got all these tabs. Again, you click on this appears. I haven't customized the side panel. So each one's the same, but obviously you get the idea. You'd have to customize each option using JavaScript if you were to do this for real. So you click on these, and then these as well. This appears. This drop down animation to show like all the different options. Again, you click on each one, you can go back. Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same. And yeah, so keep watching to find out how to make this. Okay, so I've just set up a couple of things beforehand. They're all things that you saw earlier on in the intro to the video. This text here and the image, these two elements are centered using Flexbox, and the text here, which is clickable using cursor pointer. If you're wondering where I got this hamburger menu from, it's actually just a default Unicode character. It's called Trigram for Heaven. I'll post a link to it in the description. This one, you just copy this HTML entity to use it. The first thing that we're going to do to make sure that our navigation menu is a true replica of the Amazon navigation menu, we're going to use the same font that Amazon uses for its website. Now the font that Amazon uses is called Amazon Ember, and it's a free font that can be downloaded on this website. I'll post a link to it in the description, so what you do is just press download here, download it in your project location. Like that, and then you want to unzip it, and you can delete this once you've unzipped it. Close that now, and I'll just rename it now just for easy access. Amazon font, yeah, in the root folder. So now obviously this is our boilerplate just with the content that I already introduced beforehand. What we need to do now is to import a custom font. Use ampersand. Oh wait, sorry, no, the at symbol, not ampersand. And then font face, and then use src URL. We're just gonna type in Amazon. Yeah, Amazon font.ttf, true typeface font, and then you use. Specify the name. We'll just call it Amazon Ember, because that is the official name of the font. And then we're gonna say on the all element selector, we're gonna say always use Amazon Ember. So now the text should be changed from Times New Roman, I believe. Yeah, to Amazon Ember. And yeah, so this is good now because it's the font that Amazon uses. Okay, now that we've changed the font, we can actually begin to create the navigation menu. So you go back to the styles, we're gonna do the markup for it. So it's gonna be obviously below that. This is all the not Sidenav content. Okay, and so we'll create a div above here because we're actually making the Sidenav now. And we'll give it a class of Sidenav. We'll be styling the class, but we'll also give it an ID of my Sidenav. The reason for the ID is for JavaScript, which we'll be doing later on. And then inside of the Sidenav div, just a quick warning, there's going to be a lot of markup inside the Sidenav. But right now we'll create one called Sidenav header, which will be that bluish sort of bar on top of Amazon's nav bar. And what they have in there, if I can show you, yeah, they have this sort of icon thing. And what this is, it's actually a Font Awesome icon. Well, I don't know if it's I don't know if theirs is from Font Awesome, but we'll be using Font Awesome's icon. I'll post a link to it in the description, so we just copy the icon there, but obviously this isn't going to work without the CDN. So you go to, well, first of all you have to create an account to use it. But once you've created an account, you click on your profile, click on Font Awesome CDN. I'm already on it. And then you copy this link tag, paste it up here. I've already pasted it up beforehand just to test it. And now if we refresh the page, we should be able to see the icon. Yep, there it is there. And we're also going to need some text after the icon, so we'll put space, hello, comma, sign in, because that's the text that Amazon has. Refresh the page, yeah, it's looking good, but obviously we need to style it. So I'm going to go back to my here, I'm going to say create a comment, call it navbar to separate it from the other styling. And then we're going to say select the Sidenav class. We'll say max width to be 380 pixels. The reason why we're using max width is because we'll do width 85%, and this is to make it responsive to smaller screen widths like smartphones. And set overflow on both axes hidden, because we don't want it to scroll, we want the container to scroll. I'll show you in a second. Well, not in a second, but I'll show you later. Height, 100% of the document. Position, we fix because we want it to appear even when the user scrolls down the page. But we don't have enough content for the user to scroll on this page. But obviously if we had enough content, then we would want it to still remain on the side, which is the reason why we use top left. Top 0 and left 0 to make sure that its origin is the top left corner of the document. We'll say background colour. At the moment it's going to be grey just so it's easier. We'll change it to white later on though. Transform. Origin will be left centre. This is for the animation, which we'll be doing later on. And yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do the transform property yet, because otherwise we won't be able to see it. So if we refresh the page, yes, we added the bar now here. And if we, yeah, it's going to be responsive if we see what it looks like on mobile. Yeah, it's going to be 85% the width of the document, which is good. This is what we want. And then below that we're going to do the Sidenav header now. So colour, text colour will be white. We'll do font weight will be bold. Background colour will be RGB 35, 47, 62, because that's the exact colour that Amazon uses. I just found it in RGB. Padding, I'll say 10 pixels top, 0 pixels right, 10 pixels bottom, 30 pixels left, and then we'll say font size, give that 23 pixels. Okay, now if you refresh the page, yep, it's looking good now. It's looking pretty much exact replica. Okay, now we're going to continue with the navbar content. So we're going to go back to here. Below, yeah, we're going to say, create a new comment, say below Sidenav header. This will be important later on when it just gets incredibly messy, but we're not using any frameworks, there's not much we can do about that. create a new div. Remember, this is still inside the Sidenav main parent div. I'll give it a class. It's going to be called Sidenav content header, and well, Amazon's first header is trending. Below that, we're going to create a link tag, even though it's not going to lead to anywhere. It's just because it's a simulation of the Amazon website, which is a link. And then inside the link will be div. The div will have a class of Sidenav content, and then what is it? It's bestsellers. There's the first one. And then you've got a couple more, I believe 2 more below that. So copy them. This is new releases. This one is movers and shakers, and then below that they've got horizontal wall. So we put that in, go back to styling. Okay, so we'll start the Sidenav content header first. So Sidenav content header, same margin, top to be 5 pixels, and then we'll say padding 15 pixels, 0 pixels to the right, 15 pixels, 25 pixels to the left. We'll say font size 20 pixels, font weight, be bold, and then we'll do Sidenav content, plain and simple. Give it padding 15 pixels, 0 pixels. We could just copy this actually. It's not hard. Copy it like this, and we'll need to do a pseudo selector hover for the Sidenav content. So colon hover, and then we'll say background color. Use the same one that Amazon uses, which can be found with the hex value of EAEDED. So, and horizontal wall, it's going to be a thin one, so we say height, specify it to be 1 pixels. Border, completely remove that. Color, grey. Background color, the same, so grey. And then we say margin 15 pixels, auto right 10 pixels, bottom, auto left, refresh the page, see what it looks like. And yeah, as you can see, okay, the problem with this is, okay, we can't see the horizontal wall because our nav bar is grey, so we'll just, yeah, it's looking good now. Obviously, the problem with the links is we need to remove the link default styling. So to do that, we use combine selector to select all the different states of link, which is a link, a visited, a hover, and a active. Set the text decoration to be none. Color be black. This will be black without an underline. Refresh the page. Yeah, it's looking good now. So we're going to continue with the markup now. So we're going to create a new content header. So copy that. Below the horizontal wall, it's called digital content and devices. Whoops. Digital content and devices. Inside that, we're going to create another link. href, we hashtag again because it doesn't lead to anywhere. And inside that, we're going to create a div called, well, with a class of Sidenav row. Inside that, we're going to create another div, Amazon music. And inside that, we're going to create, well, we're not going to create, we're going to link to a font awesome icon. So we use itag, class, FAS, FA, chev, right. So what we're doing now is basically we're replicating these ones, but there's an arrow to the right. refresh the page again. It's not formatted correctly. So you go back. So we do the styling for it. So we'll say Sidenav row. We'll say display flex. Width 100%. Justify content or a space between to ensure that the difference between the beginning edge and the end edge is the same. You'll see in a second. And then we'll say padding 15 pixels, 25 pixels, 15 pixels, 25 pixels. Refresh the page. Yeah, it's looking good now because it's displayed horizontally. And then we're going to say the same as before. We're going to add a pseudo class with background color. We'll just copy it up from here instead of typing out the hex code again. So yeah, so when you hover over it, yeah, it's you can see the background changes. So I think you get the idea now. You can change this to white now because I don't think you need the light grey. It's just a distraction, to be honest. Now, if you look closely on the Amazon, the chevron right symbol changes colour ever so slightly as well. So we need to simulate that. So we'll say Sidenav row pseudo class hover, and then select the eye, and then the colour will be hashtag 3 ones. It looks like, and then we use the important keyword to overwrite the inline styling. But we haven't actually done the inline styling, so we'll say style color. Use the same one that Amazon uses, which is 8E9090. Refresh the page, test it out. Yeah, it's looking good now. Okay, I think we've reached a point now where we can add the opening and closing animation, and we can also add the this X symbol here, which allows the user to exit the sidebar on click. So above the side, actually above this side nav div here, this one that's going to contain everything, we're going to create a div which is separate from the side nav because it's to the right of it, so it's not actually inside of the side nav. It's going to have an ID of close btn. Inside, it's gonna have a Unicode value, just of times, and this should be an ampersand. There you go. Yeah, so an ampersand is not the @ symbol, and also we're gonna have an on-click attribute called close nav, because that's what it's gonna do. Obviously, this is for later when we do the JavaScript section, but we'll just add it now, so it's there. And then we'll say close btn. We'll say position absolute. It says absolute to its parent, to its position parent element, which in this case will be the document. Top left, top 0, left 0. We'll say margin left 390 pixels, because remember the side nav was 380, so this is the width of the side nav plus 10 pixels. And then we'll say color white. I'll say font size 50 pixels, cursor, so the user has a visual indicator that they can click on it. I'll say set the Z index to 75. You'll see later when we add the overlay. And now if we refresh the page, oh yeah, you can't see that actually, it's a good point. So at the moment we'll say black, but we will change it to white later. Yes, it's positioned down from what we need to. This is just because it's a Unicode value. It's just a natural behaviour. But the solution will be simply to do transform translate Y. So we do a bit of an animation on it. Well, it's not animation, but we'll move it up by 5 pixels like that, so it's looking good now. It's aligned properly. And also give it a transition. So visibility 0.5 seconds. This is for when we animate the nav bar using the JavaScript file. So this is for when we actually create the animation in the JavaScript file. So it animates the visibility of the X character. But first we need to create the actual animation of the nav bar before we use the JavaScript file. So what we need to do, we'll go back up to the nav bar and we'll say transform, translate X, and then we'll say minus 380 pixels. So this is currently 380 pixels. So what this is going to do, it's going to move it basically to a point. It's going to move it so far to the left that it won't be displayed on the screen basically. So we'll go down now. We'll create a comment called animation, and then we'll say keyframe collapse. We'll call it collapse. 0%. We'll say Z index. Because remember the navigation element had a Z index of 100. If we don't add this, then for some reason it gets rid of the Z index value, so we'll just reinstantiate it here. And then we'll say transform, translate X, we'll say 0 pixels to start off with, because this will be the one that collapses back in. So it's already been expanded out, this animation. Copy this, we'll put in minus 380 pixels again. And now we need to create the expand one, so how to expand the navbar. 0%, actually we'll just copy this, but we'll change the values around. So this one, it starts off at 380, as it currently is, and then it goes back to 0. Below this, we'll also need to create 2 more animations called show and hide. This will be applied to the X character, because this doesn't move, it just fades in and out. So we'll say 0%, opacity 0, and then we'll say opacity 1. Below this, we'll say keyframes hide 0%, opacity 1, because remember we're going the other way this time, and 100%, opacity 0. Okay, now I need to go to the JavaScript file, but we need to create the JavaScript file first, so we'll say script.js, create that, script.js. Now, what we've done is we put an on-click attribute called OpenNav onto this hamburger menu with its open, with the open text as well. So what my mouse is currently hovering over, when the user clicks on that, this JavaScript function will be triggered. So we'll create that function, OpenNav, and I'll say document.get element by ID. We'll say my Sidenav style, so give it the animation that we created, basically. Expand 0.3 seconds forwards, so it retains its state specified by the last keyframe in the animation. And then for the close nav, which will be triggered when they press the X div, which can be found here. Remember, close nav. That's where that comes from. Document.get element by ID. Remember, same as before. My Sidenav .style.animation equals collapse this time. 0.3 seconds forwards. So if we refresh the page now and we click this, so this comes in now, and we press the X and it goes back in. So, but the problem is we need to animate this X, the visibility of this X, so it's not always here all the time. So we're going to put a comment to specify that it's what we're doing. We'll say close btn, get element by ID, close btn, style.display equals block. For this to work, we need to set the close btn. I was going to do this before, but I needed to show you what I was doing. To none. So currently, yeah, so it's not going to be here. But as soon as it gets set to block, then it will be visible. And we'll copy it just for brevity. So we'll set animation equals show 0.3 seconds. And then we'll need to do the hide animation here. So we'll say close btn, copy this again just for the ease, and then we'll say hide 0.3 seconds. But the problem is it's block class, so it may be invisible, but it was still it can still be clicked on basically because it's just invisible, but it's still rendered on the page, kind of, in a way. So what we're going to do is we're going to say timeout. This will activate this callback function after 300 milliseconds, so 0.3 of a second. In other words, after this animation's over, we'll say document.get element by ID, close btn, .style.display equals none. So now it won't be able to be clicked on again. So if you refresh the page now, click on it again, it fades in, and this slides out. Again, you click on it again, that fades out, that slides back in. So that's what we want. But if you can see in the Amazon, so what they have is they have this overlay thing, which tells the user that basically the regular page is inactive until this has disappeared back in again. So we need to create that. So we'll go back to the index.html. The first child of the body will just be a div, and we'll give it a class of overlay. So below the animations, we're going to create a new comment, again just to separate everything out, and so for later reference, so we know what each code does. We'll say, oh yeah, sorry, it probably should be an ID actually, because there's only one overlay. So we'll say overlay as an ID, not a class. At the moment, it's going to be displaying none because the Sidenav, to begin with, it won't be open. So the overlay shouldn't be visible. Position fixed, so it stays with the document no matter how much the user scrolled. Top 0, left 0, so its origin is to the top left always. Width 100%, height 100%, take up the entire all the space in the document. Zid index we'll say 50, so it's below the nav bar and the X, but it's above all the normal content of the document. And then we'll say background color RGBA 0, 0, 0, 0.7. This will be black with 0.7 opacity. And so now we go to script. We'll put a new comment, so call it overlay, because this is what we'll be animating. Overlay. Document get element by ID, overlay. And also style.display equals block, similar to what we did with the X character. Again, type it out. Style.animation equals show 0.3 of a second, and we'll copy. Actually, no, this needs to be. And now, like with what we did here, we'll do the same only with the overlay. So set it back to none again, and then we'll set overlay hide 0.3 of a second. So if we test this out now, yeah, this overlay's appeared, and okay. This X now needs to be changed to white to make it stand out from the overlay color. So we'll say white, change it back to white, which is how we want it anyway. Yeah, so now this is looking good. Okay, so we reached a point here where basically, until we get to this feature, this is all just markup that we need to fill out the nav bar with. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to fast forward it, and then I'll come back to when it's done basically. Okay, I've reached a point now where this is getting filled out. So we need the scroll feature basically. The reason why I didn't do this before is because we need to essentially wrap a lot of this content within another container, which isn't the Sidenav, but it's a container that will contain everything below the Sidenav header, essentially, in the Sidenav that we've currently made thus far. So we'll say, we'll cut a comment just before we add the closing div. We'll say end, our first container, because this will come in use later on. Put that div there, and then we'll give it an ID of main container. So we'll go to a style now, scroll down, and then we'll give it another comment called container part main container. Yeah, we gave it a hyphen. Alright, we did. Just to make it stand out. Position absolute, so I'll be absolute positioned to the fixed position Sidenav. So width 100% of the Sidenav. Size and same with height. And then we'll say this will enable it to scroll vertically. We'll say scroll. So now, if you go back to our website, open up this. Yeah, it's added it, but we need to add more content first before we can scroll. But as you can see, it has added the scroll bar, which is what we want. So you go back to our markup now, and the next row is this see all thing, which you can click to expand and also for it to collapse in on itself again. So we're going to create this. So below the closing A tag, we'll create a div. It will have a class of Sidenav container, because this will be the container that contains all the drop-down content, and then ID first, container. This is for JavaScript later on. Add a horizontal rule, which needs to be customized because it's a bit different, this one. Inside there's just normal rows. There's nothing special about those rows, so I'll just fill them out. So fill out all these rows, as you can see them here. I'll fill them out and then I'll come back once I've done it. Okay, so now I've filled out all the content. As you can see, I've filled out enough content for it to be scrollable. And this submenu, hasn't been collapsed yet, obviously, but we got it here. So the first thing that we need to do below the container that we created, we gave it an ID of first container and also a class as well. Below this, we'll need to create the row which basically says see all. So we'll give it a class. We'll say Sidenav row dropdown. We'll give it an ID as well, which we'll use for. It'll be used for the JavaScript, and then on click, so we can activate a method when it's clicked. Call it first dropdown. Inside, we need to create a div. Call it see all, and then I class, whoops, not a no, that's not a real thing. It's I, and then we'll say class font awesome, so FAS, FA hyphen chevron, but currently we a chevron pointing down, not chevron pointing towards the right. And then we'll say style equals color, hashtag 8E1990, and then we'll say margin left 10 pixels. Okay, and we need to style this now so it looks presentable. So above the overlay we'll create a new comment section, call it Dropdown. We'll say Sidenav, container, horizontal line in that, we'll say width 85%, so it's not all the width. It's not all the width, unlike these ones, because we want to separate them. We want to separate the sub menu from the normal menu, and then we'll say Sidenav row drop down, display flex, width is 100%, justify content will be start, align hyphen items will be center, heading 15 pixels top, 25 pixels right, 15 pixels bottom, 25 pixels to the left, cursor, pointer, and then below this we'll say, I'll just copy this for brevity. And yeah, we want to do what we did for the normal rows in terms of the background color change, so we'll copy this. And also, again with the I tags, so I, whoops, missed out the dot here. Scroll up, just copy this color here, paste it in like that. Okay, now we need to style the first container so it's actually collapsed. So we'll say first container display none, so it's invisible currently. Height we 0 pixels because we want it to be collapsed. Opacity 0 to make it invisible. Transform, scale Y, so the vertical axis, so it's fully collapsed in. Center top, transform origin, so this is for the animation, so it expands from the center, from the top of the center. Okay, now on some reason the CR row isn't showing, which is the one that we should be able to see. I'm not entirely sure why, but I found that if you just copy and paste just an extra row below, it's showing now for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but oh well, let's just get on with the tutorial because it's already long enough. So what we need to do, we need to create this method in the JavaScript file. So we go to the script. Okay, we'll set function first drop down. Actually, before we do this, we need to create the animations for expanding and collapsing. So we'll say at keyframes expand drop down 0%. We'll say transform scale Y. We'll start off at 0. I'll also set opacity to be 0 as well, and then 100%. We want transform scale Y. You want this to be 1 now, so it's fully expanded out, and then we'll say opacity 1. And now we want to basically create the same, just reversed, so it collapses back in itself. So we're going to copy this, just reverse the values, so 1, 1, no not 10, naught naught. Okay, and now you want to go to the method. We're going to create a boolean to toggle the animation between collapse state and open state. We'll say so we can toggle them between each other. So we'll set the boolean to be opposite of what it was previously. Oh wait, sorry, we can't have that. So we'll say, yeah, we'll call it open. It can't have it the same name as the method. And then we'll say if first drop down open is true, then we will change the we'll change the chevron so it points up. So we'll say query selector. We'll say first drop down, select the I tag of that, and then we'll say set attribute class to change its class values, and then we'll say FAS, FA, chevron up, basically. So if we try this now, then we click this, okay. Alright, so it's first drop down with capital D. So I made an error there, so if you click this, yeah, it changes now, which is good, that's what we want. And then below that we're going to say document query selector, and then we're going to say first drop. We're going to select the div basically instead of the I tag, and we're going to say inner HTML. That will be CLS, and below that we're going to say create a comment, handle container, document.get element by ID, first container style. We'll set it to be block because currently it's none, remember. So now it can actually be visible. And then we'll say give it the animation that it needs. So animation will be expand drop down 0.3 second forwards, and then we'll say what we would do. We'll give it transition, so we'll say transition height and then 0.3 seconds. And then we'll say height 410 pixels. The reason for this is basically I calculated that each of these is 50 pixels each of these rows, and then we want 10 pixels of padding basically. So what it would do is it will push the CO row all the way down by 410 pixels essentially to make room for the drop down. And the reason why it's 410 is because this drop down contains 8 rows, so 5 times 8 is 40, and that's essentially why we got the value of 410 for the height basically, because it pushes CO down enough basically. If it was like 200 then it wouldn't be enough. It would, the CO row would overlap some of the drop down rows, and we don't want that. And then we're going to say else, obviously once it claps back in. So we're going to say, basically just copy this, but change it into chevron down again, instead of chevron up. Sorry, chevron, I don't know what I said. Yeah. It wasn't right. Change it back to see more. And then we'll say, copy this, change the animation to collapse, drop down, and we'll make it a bit faster this time because I noticed that Amazon's animation's a bit faster. And then we'll change transition this time, again to match the speed of the animation now, which is 0.2 of a second. And then we'll change change its height, we'll change it back to 0 pixels. Whoops. Yep, its height, we'll change it back to 0 pixels. And again, same what before. Now we need to create a set timeout. This one will be 0.2 of a second, 200 milliseconds. And then we'll set its display back to none. Again, explained it previously what this is about, and now we try this out. So we click here, we click CR, this expands down, and then we click, yeah, it expands back up now. So that's how we do this. What we got to do now is basically we just got to fill out the rest of this. So I'll fill it out. Yeah, there's another one here, but again, it's just the same, only with we use a different function, which I'll explain after I've done it. But yeah, I'll fill out all of this nav bar, and then I'll explain the last part, which is this part. So this navigation that comes to the side. Okay, so we're back now, and we got it to the point where it looks like this. The way that I solved the issue of the bottommost row being clipped off from the scroll, basically all I did was I at the bottom of the first container, I just created a div here with 50 pixels as height, because remember I said before that I calculated that each row is worth 50 pixels approximately. So it's basically just created room for the bottom row. And then what we've done here is, so this CR row, it's got the same class as this one. The only thing that we changed is it's got an ID of second dropdown, and it links to a different method. And also the container, yeah, so this container here, yeah, it's got the same class, Sidenav container, but it's got a different, instead of first container, it's second container. And the only other thing that we changed is we've added a closed nav onto the overlay. So they can either press the overlay or the X to trigger the collapsing animation for the side nav. So what we need to do, I haven't actually done the code yet because it's very simple. It's literally just the same code as the as the first drop down. The only thing that we're changing is obviously we are going to change all the firsts with second. The way that I do this on VS Code, I do this with by holding down Alt and then selecting, and we can do that. And I will also change this as well because this isn't the right height, because this one's it's got less rows than the first drop down. So we change it to 310 because it must have 6 rows. Oh yeah, okay, that was me being silly. That was not good. Yeah. So this needs to be changed, this boolean, in the if statement, because otherwise it's not right. So that, oh wait, what? Oh, I'll just change it to 260. So that's clearly, I clearly got the rows wrong on that. So it's 260. Yeah, it's working well now. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to go, so here's the end of the first container. We need to create, so below the first container, but still inside this master navigation parent div, which contains pretty much everything. Well, 90% of what's actually in this HTML file anyway. We'll create a div with, we'll call it sub container with ID of sub container, and then inside we'll create a div with an ID of main menu, and then inside that we'll just copy this I tag here, but we'll change it a bit. So we'll say, first of all, well, this will be, yeah, so we'll just have this color here, and then we'll say chevron left instead, and then we'll say space, caps lock on, main menu, and then below that we're going to include horizontal wall. Whoops. Horizontal wall, and then we'll just include two very simple, we'll just copy these here, so the header, oh whoops, not cut, copy. We'll say, obviously if you were doing this for real, then you wouldn't even create these using HTML. What you would do is you would select this subcontainer, and then you would use the append method to append all the rows that are related to the the row that the row at the main navigation that you clicked on. But we'll just include 2 dummy ones here, so header, prime video, and then just 1 row, all videos. And what we need to do is we need to style these. So below the main container, we'll say sub container position. We'll set the position to absolute, again same as the main. Width 100%, height again 100%. Overflow Y will be scroll. Background color, we'll say that to be white, and then we'll say transform, translate X, and then we'll say 420 pixels. So this will be moved so far, actually no, we'll say, sorry, not 420, yeah, so we'll say 380, so it'll be basically, it will be moved to the right of the navbar, but because it's overflow hidden, we won't actually see this. So if we refresh the page, okay, so we need to finish the styling first before we can get it to work. So we'll say main menu, because remember it's a class. We'll say margin top 5 pixels. Padding, we'll say 15 pixels. 0 pixels, 15 pixels, 25 pixels, and then we'll say font weight bold. Below that we'll say main menu, hover, background color, again same as all the other row colors, so we'll just copy this, and then we'll say cursor pointer to indicate that we can click on it to press back. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a problem here. This actually isn't a styling issue, which is what I thought it was. It's actually, after much investigation, it's actually because we forgot to include the closing icon tag here, so we just include it there. Okay, I did actually spot another problem. The problem is to do with this. So this one's collapsing properly, but this one isn't because it's collapsing from the middle rather than the top down. So the reason being is because both containers for the drop downs have different IDs, but they've got the same class. And we've styled the class, but really we should just, all we need to do is just style the class itself, and now it should be working. Because the height differences is done using JavaScript. Yeah, so now, yes, that's working properly now. So the final step is we're going to put an event listener on every single one of these rows with the arrows on. So not these, but just the rows with the arrows on. We're going to say document.query selector or to select every single one. We'll do Sidenav row, and then we'll say for each, and then we'll create arrow function. Row is a singular argument, and then we'll say add event listener. Click. So this adds a click event listener onto every single one. And then second argument will be again arrow function. And now we need to create the animations in relation to these different containers. So below the main container we'll call it main away. 0% will be, we'll say translate X will be, we'll say 0 pixels, so it's where it is currently, and then 100% at the end of the animation. We'll say translate X minus 380 pixels, was it minus 380? Let me just check. Yeah, that was the width of the navigation bar. And then we'll say, so that's the ones to push it away basically to the left. We want the one to reverse, to bring it back now. So we'll call main back, again just copy this but reverse it around. Reverse these values, so we'll just copy them just for ease. And now we need to animate the sub-container, but these animations probably be actually up here, below the main container. I don't know why I put that, was a bit of a mistake. And by the way, if you wanted to see what this looked like, you can just translate x to 0, and when you refresh the page, so this is what it looks like. But the reason why we can't see it is because it's moved so far towards the right, and because combine this with the overflow, you just can't see it because it's actually somewhere around here. But the reason why we can't see it is because it's moved to the right. So below the sub, we'll say, again with keyframes, we'll say sub back, and then we'll copy what we will copy. We'll copy this, but the reason why we don't use the same animation is because this needs to be, it needs to be moved to the right basically, and not the left. And then we'll say copy that and sub push, and then this will be start off at 0 and move to 380 pixels. And now we need to go to script. We'll say document.get element by ID main container. We'll say style.animation equals main away 0.3 second forwards, and then we'll do the same for well, not the same, different animation. It'll be sub back, and then sub container, so not main. And then so this is what will happen if they click on the rows with the arrows on. But what we want to do is we want to create an on-click listener for the main menu element. So when they click on that, also get element by ID main menu dot add event listener, click, and then arrow function but with no argument. And then we'll say get element by ID main container dot style. Oh whoops, I'll just copy this actually. It's the same, only we're using main back now. Same with this, it's the same thing, only instead of we're using sub push. And then finally what we need to do, we need to scroll up, and this should be good, but so we click, and then it's working. As you can see, that's exactly how we want it to be. The problem, one final, and I mean final, just checking different, hold on, let's just check different screen. I know this is a long video guys, but again, you didn't click on the video without knowing that. You knew what you were signing up for. Yeah, it's looking good. One final thing, basically in Amazon's one, you click on this, and then you click off it, and then it's still on this sort of side menu, but we don't want that. We want to basically reset it every time they click off it. Click off the navigation menu, so we'll say in sorry, not there. So in the close nav function, timeout function, we'll say reset menus document.get element by ID main container, and then we'll say style.animation. So we'll remove the animation attribute, and we'll do the same for sub. And then what we'll do is we will say transform on the main container, transform translate x equals 0 pixels, and then we'll copy. Just doing this real quick because I know the video is so long. And then for the sub container, we will do translate x, move it back to 380, so it'll be moved to the right again, so we can't see it. Gonna refresh, boom. Sorry, not B. Yep, and then open it up again. And it's working now. And this is okay. So I wasn't originally going to show you how to customize the content of each sub navigation in relation to which row that we clicked on, which row with these right facing chevron that we click on anyway. So for example, Prime Video, Amazon Music, but not these ones up here because they don't have the right chevron. So that they're just a direct link. They don't lead to the subnav. But I looked at how long the video was, and I just decided I might as well just teach it because the video is already incredibly long. So the way that we're going to do it is we created a div here which wraps the subnav content that we want to customize. So not the header, because we always want this main menu back button to be there. But we do want the rows of the subnav menu to change, which is the reason why we wrap it in a div called sub container content, so we can target it using JavaScript. We'll go up to the first row with the right facing chevron, which is Prime Video. On its link tag, we'll say, on click, we'll say open Prime Video, something like that. And then we go to JavaScript, create that function. And then we say document.getElementById to target the subcontainer content, I believe. Just go back down to it. This one. Subcontainer content dot inner HTML. And we're going to use backticks because it's easier for the string interpolation, because we can write out strings on multiple lines without getting any errors. We'll copy this because this is the correct content for the Prime Video, and then we comment it out so it won't appear unless we click on the Prime Video row. Paste it in there, in between the backticks. Puts a semicolon there, and now if we refresh, we click on something else, there's nothing there because the content that we had before is now commented out. But if you click on Prime Video, yeah, we get the video content, and now we'll do one more. We'll do Amazon Music just to show you that it can change, because we use inner HTML, which just overrides everything. So it should work. We'll say on click open Amazon Music. I might as well put a comment here just to separate it out. Subnav content, I don't know, function open Amazon Music, and then we'll say document.getElementById. Subcontainer content, sorry, not sub content dot inner HTML. Copy the same format, just 2 rows, but we're just going to change, we'll change this, we'll say Amazon Music, and then we'll say all music. So we click on Prime Video, all videos, go back, Amazon Music, all music. So yeah, that's how you do it. Obviously, you know, if we click on the other rows, then it's gonna show the content of the previous event handler, because it hasn't been overwritten, the content. But yeah, this is just, you could fill all this out on your own if you desire. I'm just showing you how to do it. I'm sorry this video was so long, and there were a few hiccups along the way, but we solved it in the end. If you had any queries, then please post them in the comments box below. I'll answer them to the best of my ability. And you'd also do me a huge favour if you liked and subscribed. That would be greatly appreciated. And it will also be your way of showing that, you know, you're grateful for the help